everything has got a profit angle on it. So the most common statement that you'll hear is, what's in it for me? One of the biggest things that we are seeing is a complete negligence and apathy towards the workers, the employees. They're treated like machines. I just go out and buy some cakes for the receptionists or people in reception. They'll be like, oh, no, like, why did you bring these? I'm like, because I can. Just to feel the warmth on their faces when they smile.
Welcome to your Martial Mind Power podcast. I'm Jatinder alongside Sifu Lak Loi. Sifu, how are you doing?
Very well, very well. How are you?
Man, awesome. I'm good, thank you. I'm looking forward to our wisdom bombs from the art of thinking without thinking. And as usual, I'm just going to run a random generator in good old Google number generator, and it's come up with 574. Let's see what's on that. 574. It'd be funny if we've done this one. 5.
No, we haven't.
Ooh.
No, we haven't. We've done the one before that, but we haven't done that one. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
So now this one is titled Profit is Loss.
Interesting.
Okay. Profit is loss. So
interesting.
Okay. So what comes to you on that one?
Oh, this one's interesting, right? Because it's got a double meaning comes up for me, because if you look at it from a kind of profit and loss situation, it doesn't make sense, right? Because how can profit be a loss in like business, for example?
Yeah.
But yeah, if you look at it from a kind of potentially spiritual angle, there could be an underlying message in the sense that if your focus is so much on the profit, then it's potential you could be losing out on life or the stuff you're not focusing and concentrating on. So even though you have profit on one side, it could be a loss because you're maybe not creating life balance. Maybe you haven't worked on relationships or, other things in your life, and you just focused on one thing. So it could mean that as well. So I think it might be something along the lines of that.
You're spot on, man. You're spot on. I mean, there's just to basically describe the image for this koan, by the way, it's an image of shattered glass. Okay, shattered glass against a black background. Okay, it's just loads of lots of little shards of glass. Now, you're 100% right in what came to you on that one. This is why we're so in sync with one another. It reminds me of a meme, and this meme is a picture of a guy who's got this. It's like a carrot dangling ahead of him, but it's not carrot; it's money, right? And he's running towards this money, and if he takes a few more steps, there's a hole in the ground, which is basically his grave with his headstone, right? And all this guy is doing is just chasing money all his whole life, okay? And it's pretty much that, right? That we in the West, and actually I've got to say now, even in the East as well now, there's been a wave of economics, as they call it, right? And that economics is all built around this whole idea of activities in pursuit of making a profit. Okay. And as a consequence, we've all been trained in this Western way to live in this transactional way, right? Where providers of products and services provide a product and service in exchange for money. Okay, that's it, right? Now, the Problem being that everything we do has become a transaction.
Yeah.
And everything has got a profit angle on it. So the most common statement that you'll hear is, what's in it for me?
Mm-hmm.
What's in it for me? So the person that buying a product, what's in it for me? Where am I getting the maximum value in the product? The person that's paying, right? So that's the consumer, the person that's providing the product, what's in it for me? How much money can I extract from the customer? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. The whole narrative in everything that we do is about personal gain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where all we're trying to do is trying to get as much as we possibly can. And the problem with that is we've developed a transactional society. A transactional society is there's always has to be an exchange.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with always having an exchange is life isn't an exchange. Life is not an exchange. Life is not profit. Life is not always about profiting.
Mm.
Because some of the biggest profit that you'll ever gain is by giving stuff away. And you'll gain the most. Ask somebody, I'll give you an example. They say studies have shown, and so I encourage listeners and viewers to do your research. But people that win the lottery within 2 years, right? Something like 95% of them, their lives are absolutely ruined. Okay. And they've lost all the money. Okay. And they all say the same thing. I wish I never won this money. Right? Why? Because they don't know how to handle it. Right? They don't know how to handle it, right? They do not know how to handle it. And as a consequence, it ruins their lives. It ruins their lives because there's people out there that expect something from them for nothing. Now, when you're doing something without the purity of your heart and the purity out of your spirit, then it becomes a whole different thing. Okay. And as a consequence, you can start acting in a way where there isn't an exchange. And I'll give you an example. We spoke about karma before. And it's funny, I was actually teaching this yesterday in class. There's 3 types of karma. Okay. Now, these 3 types of karma one is karma itself. Okay. And this is when you create what I call a karmic debt. Okay. You do something bad towards somebody, and as a consequence, you've got to pay that karma back at some point, whether it's in this life or another life. Then you've got the second type of karma, which is vikarma, right? Vikarma is positive karma, where you do something nice for someone, but you expect something in return, right? So you have karmic credit. So they have to pay it back to you at some point. That means you're not free from it. You've actually attached a string to it. So that string has to be broken at some point when it's paid off. And then the third type of karma is zero karma or akarma. Now, akarma is when you don't create any positive or negative credit, is karma free. Okay. Now, so here's the thing: you got positive karma, right? There's still karma that needs to be settled until you get back to zero, or you got negative karma that needs to be settled so you come up to zero, right? You need to be at the 0 point, right? Which is no karma at all. So how do you do that? Well, the idea of getting into the zero karma state or 0 point is by acting in a state of what's called a nishkamma karma yoga. Now, this is all Sanskrit, by the way. Now, what's nishkamma karma yoga? Nishkamma karma yoga is when you're acting from a place of pure devotional service, right, to a higher state of consciousness. Okay, so you're not acting for yourself, you're not acting for the other person, but whatever you're doing out of surrender for supreme consciousness. So you're actually, everything that you do is not for you, it's not yours anyway, right? Everything that's given onto us has been bestowed onto us from something far greater than us, right? And as a consequence, there's an element of surrender and pure love and devotional service in that mood. When you act in that mood and you do something, then all of a sudden you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for supreme consciousness, for the highest state of consciousness, through the purity of your heart, body, mind, spirit. And when you do that, that starts to neutralize your karma. Now here's the thing. That is a complete opposite to what we're talking about in this profit is loss, koan, yeah? Because in profit is loss, all we're doing is creating karma. It's all karma.
What would you say? What would you say to the conversation that takes place around, like, karma? I think has got multiple meanings to it. Right? One is like the explanation you give, and then the other side, they say that karma just means action, like the actions you take. So they could be positive actions, what we're saying here, positive, negative kind of thing. But it could just mean that you've taken an action, which then means your opportunities and which way you go in life is based off that direction. Almost like momentum, not necessarily like, a collection and debt type of thing, but also almost just like that's the direction you went in. Therefore, those are the opportunities available to you. Like in that kind of scenario, what your is there other words for that, or would you say that karma does have multiple meanings? Because we hear that karma is a bitch, it's going to come out, bite you in the ass kind of thing. But on the other side, you hear that actually they said change karam means good actions. Or mare karam means bad actions. And when we talk about actions, they could mean, you're spending your days drinking alcohol, therefore it has a degrading effect on your body. Or you're living healthy, eating good food, therefore it has a positive effect on your body as well, right? So these are like almost actions and not necessarily like a kind of I would say material kind of direction, whereas there's another one which we're talking about, which sounds like almost like a spiritual one and untangible to some degree, if that makes sense. What are your thoughts on that?
So firstly, let me just clarify something. So when you're providing a service or a product, and you're getting you're creating a win-win. So both the person that's receiving, the person that's giving in that fair exchange, right, are in a mutually ecological congruent exchange of products and services for money or whatever they're exchanging. Then there's no karma, okay, because it's mutual, okay. But when somebody's providing a product or service and the other person's getting ripped off, okay, now there's an imbalance. Now there's a negative consequence, okay, right? And if there's a negative consequence, that's where you start to, as an example, start to create karma, right? Okay.
Wouldn't that be linked to like ethics and morals more, like your intent as to what you're 100%. Doing? Because sometimes 100%. You could do an exchange, whereas that's just the person, that's the value or price you put on something, and nobody's wiser, and it's not even come from a place of like, I'm going to rip this person off, right? So how much does that, I suppose, the intention behind something play a part in karma?
It's all intention. It's all about intention, will, energy translate into action, movement, or even inaction. So let me explain that for a second, right? The action of inaction and inaction of action, okay? So, and how does that create karma? So let me talk about inaction, or the action of inaction, right? This is when your action is to do nothing. In other words, you're not acting at all, right? Well, you are acting, you're acting ignorant. So let me give you a story. So you're walking down the street and two little boys are beating the shit out of each other, yeah? And one of the kids is a lot bigger than the other one. And so the small kid's really about to get hurt. Now you as an adult walking down this street, you've got a choice. Your choice is to break the boys up and send them their own ways, right? So the big boy's doesn't hurt the younger boy, or the smaller boy. Or you can walk straight past it, and next thing you know, the little kid's fallen down, hit his head on the side of a curb and died. Okay, but you chose not to do anything. There's karma on you because you ignored it. Okay, you ignored the unjust situation. Yeah, so that's when action is inaction right, can work against you. But then on the flip side, right, give you another story. You got a couple that are arguing, right, and they're really going at it, and you're walking down the street, and you've got a choice. Do you intervene and try and calm them down, or do you carry on? Well, it's a personal situation, right? My advice would be read the situation that given moment in time. Do they look like their husband and wife, or a part, or there's a partnership there? Is you're getting involvement in that going to help the situation or going to aggravate the situation? And are you going to become the butt of that argument and be the one that becomes the victim of it? So in that situation, you might be better off not to act and just carry on your way, right? So there are situations where if you don't act, it can have a negative karma, and the situations where you do act can have a negative karma, because where you stick your nose where it's not wanted, right, it might have a negative effect. Okay, and again, I'm just trying to give you an example that hopefully gives you an idea on how that all connects. So we have to become aware when we're acting or in action, or when we're in a state of inaction, that there are consequences. And this is all about consequences, but the context that we need to bring this into is profit is loss. Okay. And this is why I gave you the transactional example, and the example of having some kind of exchange between two or more parties, so that you understand and get an idea for what this koan is trying to allude to, trying to help you kind of understand deeper down. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely, man. I wanted to thanks for sharing on that side of it. Actually, carry on. There was something I came across which I wanted to bring into the conversation as well, which I thought was quite funny, but go on.
Yeah. So there's one massive thing that's missing when we talk about profit is loss. Can you guess what that is?
Could be. Go on.
So I'll put you in the spot there. It's the human, the individual. And it's not just a human, it's all sentient beings, okay? Sentient beings, sentient living creatures, yeah? Human, fish, mammal, you name it, yeah? And Mother Earth, okay? Now, the thing is, there are things that you can't put a price on. Like, you can't put a price on the life of your child, okay? If you want to really start to get to that point where you're like, oh, fucking hell, what are you talking about? Well, would you put a price on your child's head? No, of course you wouldn't. Especially if you're a loving, caring, attentive parent, then that's a freaking not even a question. It's out it's out of the question, as they say, right? Why would you even say that? So can you put a price on your child's life? Of course you can't. There is no price that is fitting for that, because no pieces of paper and no round pieces of metal can, or even digits in an account in your bank balance can account for a living being spirit of your child. And as a consequence, now you start to realize, well, what's profit got to do with that? And that's the whole point. It's got fucking nothing to do with it at all, right? And that's the whole point. That's what's missing. We missed the humans. We missed the sentient beings. We missed Mother Earth, right? We've missed the essence of it all. And that essence needs to be taken back into consideration, because if we don't, we're going to live like ignoramuses, right? We're going to live ignorant through our lives, as they call it in Sanskrit, avidya, right? A complete ignorance. And say ignorance is bliss. Well, it's not, because when you're being blissful in your ignorance, you are choosing your action of inaction, and that could have negative consequences as well. As they say, if you see some injustice taking place and you stand by and just watch as a spectator, then you are contributing towards that injustice by doing fucking nothing. And I'll give you a really modern day society example of this is, say something happens, some kid gets run over, right? And you've got this kid on the floor, he's freaking like bleeding out, might have broken a leg, foot's hanging out the wrong way, whatever it might be, bones poking out the leg, whatever it might be, right? Something really gory. What do people do these days? They get their fucking phones out and start filming the fucking thing, yeah? Rather than getting onto the ambulance services, getting somebody there, trying to administer roadside help, all right, as to the best of their ability to try and make that kid comfortable, to encourage the kid to make it through. We live in this freaking perverse society now where just for fucking likes on some social media platform, right, for attention, people are filming this stuff. Why do you need to film this stuff? The kid needs help, go find help. And you think the driver ran that kid over on purpose? Well, most probably not. And if they didn't, then they're probably traumatized as well. Right? So they also need help, even though, it's happened and it's happened by their vehicle. So, very unlikely that people go out and try and run people over, right? And I'm just giving you like a more of a horrific, traumatic example because...
Didn't that happen to one of your colleagues who was talking about something went down, they ran out to help, and everybody was just on their phones trying to record it, and nobody was actually calling out the ambulance or something? I think this is something you shared with me some time ago. I can't remember now.
You know what? I can't remember, man. I can't remember. There's just so many stories, Some of these just become stories, and some of them have actual real life events behind it. So, you know what? Now that you mention it, it's starting to ring some bells. But when it comes back to me, I'll go into that. But I think the point I'm trying to make is about consciousness, right? It's about being conscious about not just being in it for the profit of it all. When you see a businessman or a businesswoman or a business person, their modality is always about profit. And because there's we know some very successful business people, and we could go out on a leisure activity and they'll spot a business opportunity and they'll start giving advice to someone about how to improve the business. But that's not the point. You're out to enjoy yourself with your friends. Why do you have to look at everything as a business? Everything has to have a profit, because actually you start to degrade and lose value on life and the people inside it by not living, because all of a sudden the life that you're supposed to be living, enjoying, sharing, caring, all the rest has now just become one big business studies exercise. Right?
Yeah, exactly, man.
And then there's a cost to that, right? There's a human cost to that. There's a cost. There's a planetary cost to that as well, right? There's a cost to our nature and the animals in the nature. So just hopefully kind of gives you a bit of an idea that we have to start kind of getting out of this balance sheet mentality, and start to factor in the things that are priceless. This is why, and we're going to start talking more about corporate well-being, because we're embarking on a lot of work in that space, and try to apply the wisdom and our teachings within that space as well. Being a white collar warrior myself, as I like to refer to myself, been in corporates for over 27 years now. And in the corporate environment, one of the biggest things that we are seeing is a complete negligence and apathy towards the workers, the employees. They're treated like machines, right? So because they're treated like machines, what the employers are looking at for is output. But when the individual is ignored through complete apathy right? What happens to their performance? It goes all the way down. What happens to their productivity? It goes all the way down. What happens to their physical health? Goes all the way down. What happens to their mental health? Goes all the way down, right? So what you're starting to see is a negative return on your salary investment, okay? Because you're treating the human beings like machines. But what happens if you switch that around? What happens if you start actually caring about these people? What happens if you start actually treating these people like human beings? What if you actually start to consider these human beings as a living beings that have got will, intention, energy that can lead to action and inaction, right? To create something, okay, that is in alignment with not just your organization, but also in alignment with themselves. And when these two come together, now you got a win-win, okay? Because imagine two circles, yeah? You got the company's goals, right? And you got the individual's goals. If these two circles are far apart, you got no win-win situation, right? Now, all of a sudden, if it's just the company's goals, right, that you're working for and treated like a machine, guess what? You're dying. Your personal goals are dying. But when there's overlap between these, and even if there's a little bit of overlap and you're working in the overlap space, that's when you're alive. Because now you're serving in the highest power, because your life's purpose and your company's purpose are linked. But do employers spend time to do that? And that's important. And my answer to that is, in my experience, I've never seen it once. Not once. Not once has people said, oh, so what do you really want? Then I might ask you at the interview stage, but that's usually just a formality. Beyond that, sometimes you switch lanes very quickly. And what happens the moment you join, and all of a sudden you realize, hold on a minute, this isn't what I expected. This isn't what I was sold. This isn't all the fact that I was told when they were trying to seduce me into this role. Now they've got me, all of a sudden, it's all about them, right? So it's not a one-way street. It's a two-way street, right? And this is just to give you another example, right, of where profit becomes loss. Because now what's happening is the employees start to become disenfranchised. Okay, they start to become disassociated. They start to become depressed as a consequence of that. But if you start to give attention to your employees and start to bring these two elements together, all of a sudden, your employees are going to be alive. They're going to be operating from their higher power. They're going to be operating in their space of invisibility and superhero-ness. Yeah, right. Yeah. And that's where things start to go boom, okay? And that's when productivity goes through the roof, because now people are not acting at work because they have to. They're acting at work because they want to. And a want is much, much, much more powerful than a have to. Okay? I have to as in, you have to do this. Not because I have to do this because of X, Y, Z. It's because you've been told, yeah? So this is where the individual becomes empowered, and productivity goes up, creativity goes up, the mood goes up, right? And that's what we're trying to create here. And you can't put a price on that. Yes, okay, it'll translate into more profit, but you need to do or have the non-profit focus first. So what's the non-profit focus? The non-profit focus is, okay, what's JT interested in? I want to hire JT. What's he interested in? And whatever he's interested in, how does that cross with what we're doing? Right? And if there is an overlap, then great. We've got a win-win situation that we can create, and we can nurture each other, right? You'll nurture my business. I'll nurture you. That's where it should be. Who's doing that? Like I said, no one's doing that. Not one company is doing that. And I've worked for so many tier 1 and tier 2 investment banks and fintech vendors and consultancies. Never, not once. No one gives a shit, but they're missing a trick. And because they're missing a trick, they're missing out. This is when profit becomes loss.
Exactly, man. Exactly. It's an interesting one. I just wanted to share something I read the other day. So I was on Twitter and came across Daniel Priestley's post.
Yeah.
Daniel Priestley is is a very good entrepreneur. He's got very successful and a thought leader in his space. And he wrote something which ties in quite well with what we're talking about today. He said, "Ever noticed how so many successful people say they worked insane hours for years before burning out and then finding a better balance? They warn young people about the folly of losing work-life balance. But here's the rub. If you ask them if they'd have become successful without that kind of work, they all say no. The formula is work damn hard, get a massive breakthrough, almost burn out, become reformed, preach work-life balance to others." So I thought that was quite an interesting take on things, right? Because it's almost like you have to go through it sometimes to some degree before you can actually find that balance and really understand and the optimum way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And the reason you have to go through it is otherwise you won't appreciate it. And the reason you won't appreciate is this, right? And we've used this example in the past, is that you can't appreciate light if you don't understand what dark is, right? When you light a candle in a room, all of a sudden the darkness starts to vanish, okay? And it starts to fill with light.
Exactly.
So you have an appreciation for the light because of the dark. And likewise, just to support your point there, you can only appreciate when you're being used and abused and get to the point of burnout and complete mental illness. And let me just clarify, we shouldn't be talking about mental health. We should be talking about mental illness. It's the illness that is caused as a consequence of that, which ripples down into physical illness and disease, right? So again, like I mentioned, we're going to talk more about this because these koans are all connected, right? Because they're not separate from, our personal lives and our professional lives. They're not separate. I've worked in organizations where I've had a manager tell me, it's not personal, it's professional. This has got nothing to do with emotion. Well, actually, we are emotional beings. Our midbrain is emotional. When we're doing things at a height of our performance, we're working through our midbrain, our emotional center, our amygdala. Now, if you're fucking telling me, right, that we're not emotional beings and that I should keep emotion out of my professional life, then mate, you're smoking crack, right? Because it's all part of the same unit. We're connected, right? So you can't separate professional and personal. And what's worse is when you're acting professional and you're trying to pull out your emotions. Do you know what they call that? You know what they call that? Emotional labor. You're pretending not to be emotional. You're pretending to handle it. You're pretending. And you know how much energy that takes?
A lot.
That's what fucking burns you out. That's what's burning you out, because you're freaking trying to bite your fucking tongue, right? Because of all of this shit happening. And you're trying to separate it, but you can't. You can't separate it. And if you talk about it, you're not allowed to talk about it because they don't want you to talk about it, because they want you to be professional and go along with it. Now that's where bullying and harassment comes in. Anyway, so yeah, these are loads
another conversation.
Man, there's loads of topics here, right? So here's the point. The point coming back to profit is loss is we have to see beyond the financial gain. We have to see beyond the profit. We have to see beyond that. There's one of the biggest things, what people don't realize is in terms of profit, you can profit in non-financial ways as well. Okay. And one of the biggest profits is reputation. But some of the best reputations are built on what? Want to take a guess?
Trust, loyalty.
Okay, trust, loyalty. Okay,
honesty.
Yeah, but where did that come from? There's one word that covers all of that.
Just share it, man. I could be here forever. I could give you a whole list of
Goodwill.
goodwill.
And just look at that word. Split that word up. Goodwill. What did we say? You asked me right at the beginning. This is about will intention, isn't it? I said yes, 100%. Goodwill is the answer. Why? Will in a good nature, in the nature of goodness, with intention in the nature of goodness, energy in the nature of goodness, leads to action in the nature of goodness. All of a sudden, now you've changed the way you're looking at things. Yeah. That's the game changer here.
Absolutely.
That's the game changer in the nature of goodness. Therefore, goodwill, good intention, good energy, good action.
Equals good karma.
Yeah? Equals good karma. Yeah. Remember, karma is just one way of looking at this. Yeah.
That's right.
Just another way of explaining profit is loss. Yeah. And I think that's really, if anyone takes anything away from this, is don't get buried into the karma formula and how that plays out. It's just a way for you to understand how to get into the mode of goodness. The mode of goodness is where it all starts from. And the mode of goodness acts beyond financial gain, right? It's about enriching others. You know, they say, you know, and one of the things to kind of, you know, going back to those lottery winners that wish they'd never won the money, the 95% of lottery winners that wish they never won the money, is the, you know, I forgot my point. He's just gone. I had it there for a second and it's gone.
It's I mean, you're right on the lottery thing, because they say that because they haven't had the education and training as to what to do with that wealth and money, they pretty much don't value it, like you said earlier on, and they end up spending it pretty much without kind of being aware of what they're doing. They just go out, buy a car, buy a house, buy this, buy that, spend it all. And then when the kind of, you know, the cost of it, of keeping it going, comes in, by that time they've run out of money again, because they haven't trained the brain to learn these things, right? So there's always that element as well, where, you know, if you're given something, can you sustain it? Because you have that knowledge, that vidya, and you take your right actions in order to move forward with it in a kind of positive way, as to, you know, That's brought it back. Yes.
It's brought it back. It's brought it back. Okay. So the point I was going to make was, right, the lottery winners that have lost, 90%, 95% of lottery winners that lost all their money within 2 years, right? The thing is, there was a point where they were financially rich, okay? But they were poor in all aspects of life. Okay. In other words, no happiness, no quality of life, because they were unhappy. Okay. They were sad. They might have felt harassed by people wanting their money, whatever it might be. They might have made the mistake of going out into public and letting people know. And therefore, all of a sudden, now they're a target for people that just want something from them, right? The point being, and the point I was trying to make earlier as well, I think I must have forgotten it, is they had no wealth, even though they had a lot of money. Zero wealth, financially rich. Figure that one out. So this is
profit equals loss.
Yeah, exactly. This is profit equals loss, because wealth, you can be wealthy without having a lot of money. And I think one of the biggest cons going is, you know, you see these videos, like, you know, when you got what's that charity show? Children in Need. Is it Children in Need? When they have those programs on BBC and
the Red Nose Day stuff.
Yeah, the Red Nose Days and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And else, you know, the problem with these, the way they portray these charities is they'll portray, you know, some kid, he's got flies flying around him and he's got all, you know, shit all hanging over his mouth, right? All dry, and, you know, and they'll, you know, I mean, there are kids that are suffering, right? But if you go to, I mean, my parents are from a small village in India, right? And I'll be honest with you, they don't have any money, right? Nah, and if you had like children in need go there, they'll say, "Oh, these kids ain't got no new clothes to wear. They don't have like yeah, nutritious diet and all this kind of stuff." It's bollocks. They're happy. They're happy. In fact, they've got time on their hands. They can do whatever they want. They do a little bit of farming. They look after the house. They've got no, well, they didn't at that time have a major desire for money. A lot has changed now, and they were happy. They had time. And one of the biggest things I noticed when I went there as a kid was everyone had time for you because they weren't chasing the money. They were wealthy beyond measure, but they didn't know it. Right? But they were made to feel inadequate because of what's happening in the West with all the material stuff. So they wanted all of that. Because they wanted all of that, I don't blame them. Because they wanted all of those luxuries, all of a sudden to get that, they need money. So they started chasing the money. Now what's happened, they're exactly where we are. Yeah. Right. So there's parts of that world that have been brainwashed now, and now they're in the same predicament we are. Yeah. But like I said, if you took a charity and took them there back in the day, they would have said, "Oh, everyone's impoverished. Look how skinny everyone is. They're not getting the right nutrition," and they'll show some cases where, some kids are unhappy or whatever it might be, but it's bollocks. Most of the kids are happy, right? Everyone's, just living and enjoying life within the means that they've got. They've got time for each other. They got time for each other. The amount of time that I could spend with people there, and I was surprised that it wasn't like my mom and dad were working really hard back in the UK, and as kids you just want time with your parents. These guys, they were literally doing nothing, just chilling out all day long for the most part. And isn't that the dream?
Yeah, exactly.
In the West, we talk about retirement. I briefly mentioned this earlier on. And what is retirement? Retirement is relaxation. Do what you want when you want. Have some resources to enjoy the things you want to enjoy. If you've got them, if you haven't, then live within your means and enjoy what you can enjoy with what you've got. Right? As I say, you don't need the best of everything. You make the best of what you've got. And that's always been my mantra. If you can't afford it, then don't buy it. Right? Which is why I don't believe in credit cards, right? But in the West, it's gone the other way. It's like, if you can't afford it, don't worry about it. Get a credit card and you can buy it and pay it later, or you'll be in debt. All right,
exactly.
You'll be in debt. But that's the whole idea, that we want to. It's a debt society now, so it's a completely different mindset, and that's the thing. It's our paradigms have shifted from that to this. Absolutely. Right? From being in a credit to a debt society. We live in a debt society.
That's right.
Crazy, so again, that doesn't help. It doesn't help because the paradigms have shifted. So what do we need to do to fix this? Well, the paradigm's inside you. It's not outside. It's inside you. If you start thinking differently, all of a sudden you shift it. Right. And hopefully this podcast will help you understand that there is more to life than just money and just profit. And there's different types of ways of profiting. And there's being rich and there's being wealthy. And they're not the same. And they're not all to do with finance and money. And that we've got to shift that paradigm within ourselves. There are some beautiful things that are happening in the world, which are kind of connected to this new paradigm shift, because there are some people that are aware of this, like Pay It Forward, for example, where someone says, I'll donate 20 quid to a coffee shop. Then when somebody comes in, they can buy something and it'll come off that 20 quid. And there's some places in the States, I've seen some photos online and social media where some coffee shops or sandwich bars have a board where people have pledged money, and they'll just put a little post-it note, and then anybody that can't afford it will just rip one off and say, can I use this to order something, right? Order some food and drink or whatever, because they can't afford it, or they just happen to not been going through a rough time at that moment in time where they have to lean on somebody's goodwill. Exactly. See that word's come back again, goodwill, right? That word comes back. So it's just something to bear in mind. So pay it forward is one beautiful example where people are doing stuff like this, right? And also to do it anonymously. If you're going to do charity work, do it anonymously. You don't want to get fame off it, because if you're trying to do fame of it, you are creating vikarma. You're creating vikarma, which is that positive karma, right? You're doing a positive deed with an expectation for recognition. Yeah. Without recognition. Because why do you need recognition if you're doing something good? Because the Nishkama Karma Yoga, where you're doing something without any expectation return, is you do it anonymously. Right? So the real charitable people, the real philanthropists, you don't know who they are. You'll never know who they are. And the ones that do and the ones that you do know who they are, well, you shouldn't, for that very reason. And the fact that you do know, you've missed the point. Right?
Fantastic, man. Fantastic. Yeah.
So some loads of wisdom bombs in that. The thing is, in the end, right, this is about goodwill and all the things around that. How do you do that, and how do you see things, and how do you act in that space consciously, with in the mode of goodness. And if you do things in the mode of goodness, all of a sudden it starts to change who you are. And even if we do one little small thing, that's fine. There's a beautiful quote by Richard Branson, and I don't know it verbatim, but it's something along the lines of, what do you do when you're lost? Do something kind to someone, or do something kind for someone. That's it. Right?
Quite nice. Yeah.
Right. So there, working in the corporates, when I was in a
pickle.
Yeah, in a pickle. I'd just go out. I'd just go out, buy some cakes for the receptionists, right? Or people in reception. They'll be like, "Oh, fucking hell, like, why did you bring these?" I'm like, "Because I can." Right, that's it. Just to feel the warmth on their faces when they smile. That's it. Because that was all the joy I was getting that day. That's the only joy I was getting that day.
Interesting.
Yeah. So just something to think about, right? And I wasn't doing it to try and get the joy. I was doing it to try and give somebody else joy. Yeah, just so you know. And the reason I'm explaining it here is because I'm helping people understand, not because I want recognition for it. Let's just get that straight, because that's falling back into the same old trap. Okay. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things, as they say, a random act of kindness, right, is just another way of doing it. But this shift is happening within us here. And when it starts to shift, all of a sudden you're starting to, if loads of people are doing that out in the world, then the world's shifting. It's as simple as that. But it starts with you. You are the one that creates the paradigm shift. And if it's in the mode of goodness, hey, it can only have a good effect. Right?
That's it. So, yeah, I mean, some deep wisdom bombs there, and on that note, Sifu Lak Loi, I think you ask the honors, man.
Do the honors, yeah?
Do the honors.
Okay, so this one's at 2.5 pages, so just bear with me, guys, right? So profit is loss, right? So I'm going to read from page 574, 575, 576, okay? So it says, we live in a transactional society where we always take something in exchange for a payment. If we cannot get it for free, that is. This attitude is driven by interest in profit alone. If the transaction doesn't make economic sense, then it's not worthy of doing. It is a take attitude where we accumulate and are never satisfied. There's always a newer model that's better than your inferior version. It's not uncommon to hear the words, "What's in it for me?" This is an economy of scarcity based on fabricating high demand The perception of a limited supply means people are willing to pay more to get the things so others don't. So you can charge more, and the more profit the organizations playing this economics game can make. And the one who accumulates the most wins, because apparently there's not enough to go around. The economics stop making sense after a certain point. You just have to look at elite corporations driven by their balance sheet mentality. For example, hundreds, if not thousands of people get laid off every year in tier one investment banks if their department is not performing according to their balance sheet because it's not in profit at that time. Regardless if that department helped the company rise to success, survive the last 3 recessions, and temporarily posted losses selflessly so it could save 5 other departments and the company itself, whilst the board members took home massive bonuses. This is when loss is profit. Soon we start to think we are only as good as the totals on our balance sheet, which drive the decisions and fate of our people. And we allow the people that made amazing things happen due to their expert abilities and sense of ownership and belonging simply walk out the front door, rather than consider repurposing their skills to create something new altogether. Soon you start to see the degenerative effect of reducing things to the smallest unit. That's right. Everything is simply numbers in this example, and it has the ill effect of dehumanizing people. That is when profit is lost. Bruce Lee once said, man, the living creature, the creating individual, is always more important than any established style or system. Even when you try and do something out of the goodness of your heart without any expectation, people ask, what are you after? With suspicion. You're made to feel like you can't even do anything selflessly without feeling self-conscious in a negative way. This is the fractured effect of our society, shattered by the greed of the take attitude, deluded by atomized thinking. What if we lived in a sharing society where we adopted a give attitude instead, where accumulation of possessions was seen as greed and frowned upon by society and negatively reflects on your character? You'd end up in a situation where you couldn't give your things away fast enough with love and respect, not throwing them away disrespectfully, that is, before someone else gave you something out of their selfless love and respect for you, and you'd end up with more stuff to get rid of, while accepting others' gift with love, humbleness, and humility. Remember, when you're in a position to give, you must also be willing to receive. That is a law of give and take. And when you give a thing, it comes back to you multifold. So all of a sudden, we start to experience abundance through sharing. An economy of generosity and abundance, the one who gives the most wins because there is more than enough to go around. This would require a paradigm shift, one in which people would have to change the way we think, feel, hear, taste, and see in the world in all aspects of life and business. One where you'd have to be the change by performing small acts of kindness through sharing, whether that is sharing food, clothing, money, or simply your time and compassion to speak to someone and humanize them. One where the idea of profit simply does not exist. So how can we make this happen? Well, why not go out and do 3 small acts of kindness by sharing? Then tell those 3 people to go and repeat the process with another 3 people each, and so on. Suddenly you've started a ripple in the ocean of consciousness. Remember, life is not a business. Be in the business of making a life for everyone.
Wow. A lot to ponder on there. Thank you for sharing that, Sifu Lak Loi. And anyone who's listening or watching, that was from The Art of Thinking Without Thinking, which is available on Amazon. And if you want to find out more, just go to marshallmindpower.com. And I think on that note, Sifu, we will bring this one to a close.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, wonderful. Until next time. Take care, everyone. See you later.